This is an HR program on demand, a living seed capsule of work life and workplace coming live from a rooftop in Stockholm, Sweden. It's me, Anne-Marie, and
me, Katarina Berg.
A vodcast, if you like, on HR, straight across the counter. Sponsored by HR The Real Deal, HR by HR for HR. Hello, Katarina.
Hey, Anne-Marie.
Today is the day when you and I are going to talk about compensation and benefits.
Okay.
And I was wondering about this. We've covered quite a few topics up until now.
Right.
And there is one area that we haven't talked about, and that is compensation and benefits. Is there a reason, Katarina?
I think it is a reason. Yeah. I think it's a reason because knowing you also knowing me, and in these Abba's times, there are 171 colors on the palette, right? On the HR palette. And obviously there will be a couple of topics that is closer to you and that you're more passionate. And usually when you're passionate, you're quite good. And comp and ben, super important to everybody in your company. Obviously, everybody wants to be paid fairly. Everybody wants to have relevant benefits. And everybody also want to make sure that everything stays in the same pace as the changes, the world is changing. I think it is a very important topic, and you have to be very, very good at it. And again, it also has to be in the jive of the company. So it's not just, one size fits all. And but this is not my forte, and everybody that's worked with me knows that. So I think one of the most important roles in any company that I go search and I lean in quite heavily to find the person that will head up compensation and benefit in the company. And that is what I did when I joined Spotify too. I had to find the Arvid Hedman. Yeah. He's creative. How many comp and ben, head of comp and ben people are creative? He's also an HR person and has his finances down. And then you put that into a mix and bam, you have something that makes sense. It's also maybe one of the roles in the company that it has respect. It is important. Everybody wants to weigh in. People has a lot of opinions, but it's not necessarily also the most loved position or part of the company, which is, I think, unfair in so many ways, because this is a clever department. It's very, very, very important. But back to your very simple question: is there a reason why we've been postponing it? I think it is. Right?
Yes, and obviously, just like you, it's as you said, you do have a few passions, right? Mm-hmm. And just like for me and for you, compensation is not one of those. But as you say, it is such an important discipline in the HR palette. And I agree with you as well. I think, whenever I start a new job, the first thing I look for is who's my compensation partner, because it's so critical. And I think, to your point, I think this is also one of the areas which is very difficult. You have to be not only business driven, creative is obviously a good trait, right? Mm-hmm. But you need to be tough as well, because as you say, people have opinions. It's hard, and not always do they like what you're saying. But they need to understand, right?
They need to understand, and I think in every department in HR and in life too, obviously integrity is super key. Yeah. But in this role more so. You need to know when daddy and mommy is fair. You need to know that you are treated fairly, and then again, you know that life is not fair. So it doesn't mean that everybody gets the same, but it means that everybody has the same value. And then there are a different kind of grading, or there is a salary band, or there is a way of evaluating different benefits, and this is very, very important. So. I think there is a lot of things that needs to go into, and I think also the other thing that is kind of super relevant now for most HR departments is, when we go into a hybrid or remote and people can move around the world, I think this role or this function is even more central. What is your philosophy around this?
Exactly. And let's start with that, because we talk about compensation and benefits like two different things, right? Mm-hmm. But it actually isn't. They are combined, they're interlinked with one another. Mm-hmm. And I think any successful company is also having a good view on, what is the strategy, what is the business, and how do we reward our people appropriately according to who we are and where we're heading, right? So when you went about this a few years ago, together with Arvid, looking at the reward philosophy for Spotify, where did you start and what were you thinking then?
I think it's fair, also very true to say that we didn't start with a reward philosophy. It's actually a talent philosophy. How do we view talent?
Yeah.
Per se, and what type of company? Back to what I always go back to, it's the culture, what type of people. So it starts with us wanting to recruit and also keep the right people, not necessarily the best people, and not necessarily the people that's been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. It's not about all the people that is proven either. So it goes back to your talent philosophy. And then, when you then go out and look for the right people, you also want to reward them in a fair way. So, and then in the end, you also want to combine these two things. And that is more or less our reward philosophy. And we do tentpole recruitments. And it's important if you want to grow. You need to have a couple of people that obviously are seasoned, right? But we do believe in homegrown, so we recruit a lot within. And how do you then compensate for that? How do you incentivize for that? How do you make sure that you have people that are here for the journey and not necessarily to every time you do something, you get paid? We don't believe in that, but you also have to pay. So it's one of those that it's tricky, and everything that you do, small and little, will have big effects over here.
Right.
So you have to be kind of doing A/B testing, but in a very small environment. And you also have to encounter that everything that you do and everything you don't do within your reward philosophy, people will have an opinion, a very strong opinion. And every time they sit down at a dinner table with friends or family, every time they read about a different type of comp philosophy or something, or a perk or a benefit, a lot of people will raise their voice, send an email, Slack you, and tell you like, in this company, or my friend or my father or my sister, my best friend, they get this, why don't we? Again, as soon as you start to do that, or you listen, or you do bits and pieces, and it doesn't go back to your reward philosophy that is built on, your talent philosophy, this is where you get very wishy-washy.
Right.
You're also on a very slippery slope, because then you start to eat out of your culture, right? And the other thing is, nothing is really aligned with anything else. So back to the red thread, which is super, super important. And all this at the same time, when you do this work, and even when you're quite happy with your comp and ben strategy, everybody will try to pick it apart, because
Yes.
there will be something that is not on that plate within that strategy that they are missing.
Correct.
Right. But you also said, so comp and ben is one of the same thing. It is. But at the same time, we are not now also at the point where we are separating. Arvid is overseeing compensation, but also benefits. Mm-hmm. But it actually usually are people with different skill set. Yes. That are working with this. So it's getting cleaner and cleaner for us, and also clearer and clearer that we want to have highly professional people looking into. So we are competitive when it comes to how we reward, how we benchmark, but also our benefits. So here we're going not separate 100%, but it's two teams within one team.
Right. So when you mentioned the hybrid model and your program now, Work From Anywhere, where we talked about this earlier in one of the earlier pods about the compensation and benefits, also following that setup. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that you would like to elaborate on that particular topic?
Yes, I think one of the things that we were quite clear, and this is when you have a strong team that you can benefit out of every time, is when you start to turn all the stones, right? And what does this mean? What does this mean? Should we stay with the model that we have today, even if people move from one state to another, from one country to another, from one kind of continent to another? What does that mean? And I think it's easy to go into what would the cost be.
Right.
But obviously there will be a cost. but what will the benefits be, and also how, if we have said in the Work from Anywhere program that we are trying to attract and retain, and also try to cast the net in new kind of talent pools. But the main thing about it too is flexibility and freedom, which when we asked our people are the most important thing, and why we would to launch a program before we have all the answers. Same thing goes with the compensation kind of thinking. So it was easy for us after doing the calculation, doing the math, putting it together, doing the pros and cons, and what are we actually trying to solve for, right? Then it was easy for us to decide that into the program goes, for instance, that you will keep your salary even if you move around in US. So if you today are located in New York and you want to go home to Arizona, it will be a New York salary because we now have a US salary. And again, the wind picks up on this rooftop. Always something interesting happening, right?
So our scenery is moving.
And so are we. Everything needs to evolve. Everything.
Exactly. Good bridge to what we're talking about. Because, I mean, clearly what I'm picking up, Katarina, is that as the company evolves, as the culture evolves, as the market evolves, right, this also has an impact on the reward philosophy and how we think about that.
It is, complacent is the worst thing, ever for a company, for a business, but also the different disciplines within HR, right? You have to lean in. You have to make sure that whatever was a winning bet could be a losing bet, right? Whatever worked for you in a specific time zone or a specific era, or, so the paradigm shift now with distributed first goes into everything, including compensation and benefits, right, for sure.
And I had the pleasure of talking to the director of HR Insights at Spotify, Gary Monroe. Mm-hmm. That department is also within the Comp and Ben team. Is that correct?
Yeah, the whole team, because there's so many different disciplines in it. It's total compensation, right, and HR Insights. Right. So HRIS is part of that. What most companies would call people analytics is in there, which is what Gary heads up, those two teams. And then it's compensation and the benefits team. Right. Right.
I would then assume, I'm making an assumption now, that Gary's team is also a big help to, for you to assess what is the compensation and benefits landscape looking like now and where we're heading.
I would even go so far to say that everything Gary's team is doing, and also, the kind of curated playlist of everything that I want to oversee, and all the kind of the connecting the dots, not just, yes, I think the team always collected dots, but now connecting the dots and making sure that we can do proper kind of conclusions into business decisions, obviously in HR and people decisions. Is helping, and for sure in compensation and benefit too. And here I think that I almost said the liaisons, but I think that relationship between how Arvid's brain is working and also Gary's brain is working, and the whole team has been very helpful for all of us to make sure that we know that all the things that we buy, all the benchmark that you can find, all the data points is also run through everything else that is important, and all the investments that we are doing. So kind of a due diligence on ourselves and what's working and not working, and when to leave something that has been a darling, and really, back to not saying, because I said this now for so long time, you should really pressure test your chosen truth, because they could come back and bite you in your sweet behind.
And then it's good to have a Gary and an Arvid in your team.
Yes.
Yeah. Good for you.
Very good for me.
Congratulations.
I'm blessed with a great team.
Congratulations, Spotify. Thank you so much, Katarina, for sharing your thinking and philosophy around reward.
I know you're dying now to ask, can I have Arvid to talk a bit more deeper about compensation and benefit? Of course you can.
Excellent.
Let's ask him.
Arvid, next time it's you and me.
Okay.
Great. Good. So, closing off with the three things before we get off this rooftop flying.
Yes, why not?
Probably.
Yeah. Please stay safe. Please stay strong and stay active. Idem och
Jag vet inte, är det den kameran eller den?
Jag vet inte.
Ja,
Jag valde den
och
nu.
jag bara, ja, då ska vi vända oss hitåt. Det är så skönt när Simon, den ligger och lägger sig. Go with the flow.
Och sen följer du bara med.
Ja, jag följer med. Är fortfarande snygg, eller?
Är du stark eller ser det bara ut som du går på gymnastiken?
Okej, Katarina ska bara göra liksom den där. Lead team. Ja, okej. Ska vi eller?
Ja.
Kan vi eller? Ja. Okej, nu då, är du beredd?
Ja.
Ja.